For nearly 5 decades, Graceland stood frozen in time, honoring Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll.
There is a door at Graceland that nobody touched for 48 years. Not the maintenance crew who showed up every morning. Not the security guards who patrolled the grounds every single night. Not the millions of tourists who walked through the mansion's famous rooms, staring at rhinestone jumpsuits and gold records. Not even the Presley family themselves, who inherited everything Elvis left behind. For nearly half a century, that door sat at the top of a narrow staircase, sealed shut, holding its breath. And here is the strangest part. Nobody ever forced it open. Nobody drilled the lock or broke it down in frustration. The people who had the key simply chose, year after year, decade after decade, not to use it. When a team of archivists finally turned that old brass key in January of 2025, the click it made echoed through the entire upper floor of the house. The lead archivist later said the sound felt almost too loud, like waking someone up who had been sleeping for a very long time. What they found inside was not what anyone expected. It was not a simple storage room full of forgotten junk. It was something far more personal, far more deliberate, and far more heartbreaking than that. Someone had arranged that attic with tremendous care. Boxes labeled in Elvis's own handwriting. Objects placed as if each one mattered. A life sorted into sections, like chapters of a book nobody was supposed to read. Before we go inside that room, we need to understand the man who locked it, and why, in the end, he may have wanted it found. On a March morning in 1957, a 22-year-old Elvis Presley drove through a set of iron gates in Memphis, Tennessee, and fell in love with a house. Graceland was not enormous by celebrity standards. It was a colonial revival mansion sitting on about 14 acres of rolling land just south of the city. A previous owner, a devout woman named Ruth Brown Moore, had named it after her Aunt Grace. Elvis kept the name. It suited him, he said, or at least it suited the version of himself he was still becoming. He paid $102,500 for the property. In today's money, that is close to $1 million. For a young man who had grown up in a two-room shotgun house in Tupelo, Mississippi, paying that kind of money for anything must have felt surreal. His mother Gladys reportedly cried when she first walked through the front door, not from sadness, but because she could not quite believe any of it was real. Elvis transformed the property completely over the following years. He added a swimming pool and a shooting range. He built a racquetball court in a separate structure at the back of the grounds. He decorated the interior in ways that shocked some visitors and delighted others. Green shag carpet running up the walls of the jungle room. A television room in the basement where 3 screens ran simultaneously. Stained glass windows in the living room that turned ordinary afternoon light into something theatrical. Outside, the land breathed with life. Horses grazed in the fields. A chimpanzee named Scatter, who wore human clothes and had a habit of causing chaos at parties, roamed the property with a freedom that mirrored his owner's wildest impulses. But amid all the spectacle, Elvis also built something quiet. In 1964, he created the Meditation Garden, a small, circular space near the house with a fountain, flowers, and 4 white columns standing against the Tennessee sky. He would go there alone in the early morning hours, before the world woke up, and simply sit. People who knew him well said that garden revealed a side of Elvis that the screaming crowds never saw. A man capable of stillness, of searching, of genuine spiritual hunger. Graceland was, in many ways, 2 places at once. It was a palace of excess and a place of private retreat. It was a monument to fame and a fortress against it. And then, on August 16, 1977, everything changed forever. Elvis Presley died the way he had lived for the last several years of his life, in the grip of something he could not control. He was 42 years old. His girlfriend, Ginger Alden, found him on the bathroom floor of his upstairs suite that afternoon. Unresponsive, his face turned a bluish gray. The paramedics arrived within minutes and worked on him desperately all the way to Baptist Memorial Hospital. The doctors at the hospital did everything they could. But by 3:30 in the afternoon, they had no choice but to pronounce him dead. The cause of death, as stated publicly that evening by the medical examiner, was cardiac arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat. Natural causes. The official explanation was brief, almost clinical. and left enormous questions unanswered. Because the truth, as the toxicology reports would later reveal, was far more complicated. Elvis had been prescribed an extraordinary volume of medication in the months and years leading up to his death. His personal physician, Dr. George Nichopoulos, known to almost everyone as Dr. Nick, had written prescriptions for more than 10,000 pills in just the 8 months between January and August of 1977. Sedatives, stimulants, painkillers. The variety was staggering and the quantities bordered on the incomprehensible. That works out to roughly 1 prescription every day and a half across those final 8 months alone. Dr. Nick defended himself by claiming that Elvis suffered from genuine, serious medical conditions, chronic pain from an old military injury, a painful gastrointestinal disorder, severe glaucoma. He argued that he was trying to manage real suffering, not enable recklessness. He even claimed, with remarkable audacity, that giving Elvis the medications himself was a form of harm reduction, because at least this way he could monitor what his patient was taking. The Tennessee medical establishment was not persuaded. In 1980, Dr. Nichopoulos was charged with overprescribing medications to Elvis and to other patients. A jury acquitted him. But the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners kept looking, and in 1995, 18 years after Elvis's death, they permanently revoked his medical license. The autopsy itself told a grim story of what years of this lifestyle had done to a human body. Elvis's heart was enlarged. His liver showed damage. His colon was so severely impacted, a condition he had struggled with for years, that it was described in clinical terms that would have horrified anyone who read them. A researcher named Sally Hodel, writing in her 2020 book Destined to Die Young, proposed that Elvis may also have had a genetic condition called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which affects both the lungs and the liver and could have made him far more susceptible to the kind of damage his body sustained. Whether it was genetic vulnerability, medical malpractice, addiction, or some terrible combination of all three, the bottom line was this: Elvis Presley should not have died at 42. And the people responsible for keeping him alive had, for reasons that mixed money and loyalty and perhaps genuine delusion, failed him completely. After the funeral, a massive public procession through Memphis attended by tens of thousands of mourners and watched by millions more on television. Elvis was buried at Forest Hill Cemetery beside his mother Gladys. He was not there for long. Just 2 nights after the funeral, a group of men broke into the cemetery and attempted to steal Elvis's coffin. They were caught before they could complete what they had started, but the violation was enough. His father Vernon Presley, already broken by grief, made a decision. Elvis and Gladys would be moved. In the middle of the night, quietly and without announcement, their remains were relocated to the meditation garden at Graceland, the quiet circular space where Elvis had gone to think, to pray, and to escape. Vernon then transformed the property into something closer to a fortress. New security systems, guards around the clock, and strict, non-negotiable rules about which parts of the house would remain off-limits. The staircase to the 2nd floor was roped off. The attic above it was sealed and locked. The official explanation was respect for family privacy. But over time, especially after Graceland opened to the public in 1982 following Vernon's own death that year, that explanation started to feel thin. Tourists could walk through the kitchen. They could stand at the grave. They could peer into the jungle room and the television room and the meditation garden. But the upstairs, Elvis's most private spaces, the rooms where he actually lived and slept and died, remained completely inaccessible. Tour guides always gave the same answer when visitors asked, "The upper floors are private, out of respect for the family." Decades passed. The rope on the staircase never moved. In the spring of 2024, Graceland nearly slipped out of Presley hands entirely. A company called Norsany Investments and Private Lending LLC filed papers in a Tennessee court claiming that Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter, the daughter of Lisa Marie Presley, and the sole heir to the Graceland estate after her mother died in January 2023, had defaulted on a loan of nearly $4 million. Their solution was to auction off Graceland itself. The announcement sent shockwaves through the Elvis fan community. Graceland is not just a house. It is the 2nd most visited private home in the United States, behind only the White House. Millions of people have walked through its doors. For many of them, it is a sacred place, the closest thing they will ever get to touching the life of a man who meant everything to them. Riley Keough's legal team moved fast. They filed an emergency motion in Shelby County, arguing that the signatures on the loan documents were forged, that Riley had never signed anything with this company, had no knowledge of the loan, and was the victim of an elaborate fraud. With the auction date already set, the clock was running. One day before Graceland was scheduled to be auctioned off to strangers, a Tennessee judge stepped in and halted the sale. He described Graceland as a one-of-a-kind cultural asset, and ruled that losing it would cause irreparable harm to the public. Notably, nobody from Norsany Investments appeared in court to contest the ruling. The judge's decision went through unopposed. Graceland remained in Presley hands. But the crisis had rattled something loose. Riley Keough, who had grown up hearing about what was in the attic and had always honored her family's decision to leave it sealed, began thinking differently. Her mother Lisa Marie had known what was up there. She had chosen, during her lifetime, to respect her father's apparent wishes for privacy. Now Lisa Marie was gone too, and Riley was left holding the key. She made a decision that nobody in the family had made before her. She authorized the attic to be opened, documented, and preserved. On a cold January morning in 2025,